They banned projectiles, so he brought 47 blades to diplomatic negotiations, Part 1. The message arrived at Earth's Unified Defense Corps headquarters at 3 a.m. Captain Hyunwoo was still awake, as he often was, studying ancient combat manuscripts in the archive room. His communicator buzzed with an urgent priority code. Within minutes, he stood in General Tai Yang's office, watching the holographic display flicker with alien text. "The Galactic Council wants us at Meridian's Crown Station in 72 hours, General Tai Yang said. His weathered face looked grim in the blue light. "The Vrax Collective is accusing us of treaty violations. They say we deployed kinetic weapons near their border worlds." Hyunwoo remained silent, waiting. He had learned long ago that generals didn't summon captains at 3 a.m. for simple courier duty. "Ambassador Ji-won will lead our delegation," the general continued. "She'll need security. 2 officers maximum, as per council protocols." He paused, studying Hyunwoo's face. "There's something else. 3 of our diplomats have disappeared at council stations over the past year. Different stations, different circumstances. Intelligence believes it wasn't coincidence." "The Vrax," Hyunwoo said quietly. "We suspect, but we can't prove anything." Tae-young pulled up another file. "The negotiation protocols are strict. No projectile weapons allowed on the station. No guns, no railguns, no energy weapons, no explosives. Everything gets scanned at security." Hyunwoo nodded slowly. His mind was already working through the problem like he worked through his combat forms, step by methodical step. "What about bladed weapons?" The general's eyebrows rose slightly. "The treaty mentions projectiles specifically. Blades aren't restricted as far as we know. But Hyunwoo, even if you could carry a sword past security, what good would it do against alien assassins? You'd be outnumbered, outmatched." "Permission to review the complete treaty documentation, sir?" "Granted. But I need an answer by morning. Bora from Tactical has already volunteered for the second security position. The question is whether you're willing to take the first." Hyunwoo spent the next 4 hours reading every word of the Galactic Council's weapons treaties. The documents were thorough, written in the careful language of species who had fought devastating wars before learning to talk. Projectiles were banned in specific detail. Explosives were forbidden. Chemical weapons were prohibited. Energy weapons were restricted. Bladed weapons merited exactly 1 sentence. Ceremonial and traditional armaments of a non-projectile nature may be permitted at the discretion of station security. He found Bora in the training hall, running through hand-to-hand combat sequences against practice drones. She was young, barely 30, but her record showed 17 successful protection assignments. She moved like water, fast and fluid. "You read the files?" she asked, not breaking her rhythm. "Yes." "So you know this might be a suicide mission?" She finally stopped, breathing hard. "Ji-won is brilliant, but if someone wants her dead before she can defend Earth's position, 2 guards won't be enough." "2 guards with the right tools might be," Hyunwoo said. Something in his tone made her look at him carefully. "What are you thinking?" "They banned projectiles." "They didn't ban blades." Bora laughed, then realized he wasn't joking. "You're serious. You want to bring a knife to a space station negotiation?" "Not a knife," Hyunwoo corrected. "Knives, plural." By morning, he had his plan. He presented it to General Tae-yang with the same calm precision he brought to everything. "The treaty allows traditional armaments. I propose we take that literally. Human beings have been crafting bladed weapons for 10,000 years. We've developed hundreds of types for hundreds of purposes. If they're checking for projectiles and explosives, they won't have restrictions on quantity of blades." "How many are you thinking?" the general asked carefully. 47. The silence in the office was absolute. General Tae-yang stared at him. 47 blades. You want to carry 47 separate bladed weapons onto a diplomatic station?" "Yes, sir. Different sizes, different purposes. Throwing knives, fighting knives, short swords, specialized tools, distributed across my person for balance and quick access." Hyunwoo pulled up a diagram he'd prepared. "I've been studying human blade combat traditions for 15 years. Korean, Japanese, Filipino, European. I can use them all. More importantly, I can use them together." "This is insane," Tae-yang said. But there was consideration in his voice, not rejection. "Sir, projectile weapons made us lazy. We forgot what humans were before guns. We were the species that survived because we could throw rocks accurately and craft sharp edges. The aliens know us as the species with railguns and missiles. They don't know what we were before that." The general was quiet for a long moment. And you think you can actually fight with 47 blades? I've been training for it my whole career. I just never had a reason to try it in the field. You'll be slower. The weight alone will be part of the fighting style. Momentum, sir. Physics. A blade in motion stays in motion. Hyunwoo met the general's eyes. I can protect Ambassador G1, but I need permission to do it my way. General Taeyang looked at the young captain for a long time. Finally, he nodded. Approved. But Hyunwoo, if this goes wrong, if you can't move fast enough, if those blades get you killed, then at least we tried something unexpected, sir. And humans are always at our best when we're unexpected. The meeting with Ambassador Ji-won was shorter. She listened to his proposal with the same sharp focus that made her Earth's best diplomatic mind. 47 blades, she repeated. The other delegations will think we're barbarians. Better they think us barbaric than helpless, Hyunwoo replied. Ma'am, if the Vraks plan to eliminate you before you can present Earth's defense, they'll expect standard security protocols. They won't expect something from our history books. Ji-won smiled slightly. My great-grandfather once told me that the best diplomacy happens when your enemies underestimate you. She looked at the blade distribution diagram on her screen. Do it, bring your 47 blades. Make them remember why humanity survived long enough to reach the stars. As Hyunwoo left her office, she called after him. Captain? Don't die protecting me. That's an order. I'll do my best, ma'am. He had 60 hours to prepare. 60 hours to select, modify, and learn to fight with an arsenal no human had carried in centuries. Hyunwoo smiled grimly as he headed to the armory. The Vraks had brought politics to this fight. He was bringing 10,000 years of sharp human ingenuity. They banned projectiles, so he brought 47 blades to diplomatic negotiations part. 2. The historical weapons archive sat in the old district of Seoul, unchanged for 200 years while the city grew into the sky around it. Hyunwoo arrived at dawn, when the morning light made the traditional building look like something from another time. In a way it was. Master Dongmin was waiting at the entrance. He was elderly, his hands marked with the scars of a lifetime working metal and edge, but those hands were steady as they held a cup of tea. I was expecting you, Dongmin said simply. Your commanding officer sent word. Come. They walked through halls lined with weapons behind glass, swords from the Three Kingdoms period, spears from the Joseon dynasty, knives that had belonged to mountain warriors and palace guards. Each piece was maintained in perfect condition, edges sharp enough to split paper. My grandfather told me about your family, Dongmin said as they walked. Your ancestor was a royal guard 300 years ago. During a diplomatic meeting with foreign generals, he carried 24 blades. The foreigners thought he was mad until assassins struck. He protected the king with nothing but steel and skill. Hyunwoo hadn't known that story. Did he survive? He did. And so did the king. The assassins did not. Dongmin stopped at a door marked with old Korean characters. You want 47 blades. I understand why. But carrying them is only the first challenge. Using them together, that is the real art. The workshop beyond the door was a mixture of old and new. Traditional forges stood beside modern fabrication equipment. Dongmin gestured to a table where blades of various sizes were already laid out. I prepared these when I heard you might come. Each one serves a purpose, each one balanced for a different kind of movement. He picked up a small throwing knife, testing its weight. In zero-gravity sections of the station, balance becomes even more critical. Too heavy and you spin yourself. Too light and the blade drifts. They spent hours going through each weapon. Dongmin had prepared 12 throwing knives, each one modified with small adjustments for space station combat. The spin must be perfect, he explained. In normal gravity or zero gravity, these will fly true. 8 short daggers came next, designed to be hidden across Hyunwoo's body. Under sleeves in boot sheaths behind his belt. Surprise is a weapon too, Dongmin said. Let them count the obvious blades. These they won't see until too late. 6 fighting knives formed the core of his close combat arsenal. These were longer, reinforced with carbon nanoalloy that could cut through most materials without breaking. In a real fight, these are what will keep you alive, Dongmin told him. Learn their weight like you learn your own heartbeat. 4 short swords were next, then 3 medium swords, then 2 long ceremonial blades that looked decorative but were absolutely functional. The aliens will see these and think of tradition, Dongmin said. They won't realize tradition means these designs have been proven over centuries. The specialized blades came last. Wire saws that could cut through metal, glass breakers designed to shatter transparent barriers, weighted hooks for grabbing or climbing, tools disguised as weapons, weapons disguised as tools, and finally, Dongmin said, 4 traditional Korean blade weapons, modified for modern combat but keeping their essential form. He showed Hunwoo a modified sangsudo, a twin-bladed sword, along with other historical designs adapted for the mission. Bora arrived around noon carrying food. She stopped in the doorway, staring at the arsenal spread across the workshop tables. "You're actually serious about this," she said quietly. "Completely serious." Hyunwoo picked up 2 fighting knives, feeling their balance. "Want to see why?" In the training yard behind the archive, Hyunwoo showed her what he'd been developing for years. He called it blade dancing. Though it wasn't beautiful like traditional dance, it was efficient, brutal, and terrifying. He started slowly, showing her the basic principle. 1 blade in each hand, moving in opposite rhythms. Then he added a third, letting momentum carry 1 blade while he focused on the other 2. Then a 4th. The pattern built on itself, each blade's movement setting up the next. "You're using the weight," Bora said, understanding dawning. "Most people try to fight the momentum of heavy weapons. You're using it as part of the technique." "Exactly." Hyunwoo was breathing hard but moving faster now, 6 blades in motion. Humans learn to throw rocks by understanding momentum and trajectory. This is the same principle, just closer range. Each blade's weight helps move the next blade into position. He demonstrated with 12 knives, then 15, building up the number gradually. The blades became a storm around him, moving in patterns that seemed chaotic but were precisely controlled. Strike with the right hand while the left hand's blade recovers. Use a heavy sword's backswing to power a light knife's throw. Turn defense into offense by redirecting rather than blocking. "It's not about being faster than the enemy," Hyunwoo explained, finally stopping. "It's about being everywhere at once. They can't predict which blade is the real threat because they're all real threats." Dongmin watched from the doorway, nodding approval. "Your ancestor would be proud. He carried 24. You've learned to fight with twice that many." But Bora looked worried. "Hyunwoo, this is impressive. But Ambassador Ji-won received intelligence this morning. The Vraks might have hired a Shen assassin. Do you know what those are?" He did. Crystalline species, their bodies like living glass, and his blades worked by cutting. They regenerate from cuts. "In seconds," Bora confirmed. "How do you fight something that heals faster than you can hurt it?" Hyunwoo was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then he picked up one of the wire saw weapons. "I don't have to kill it. I just have to stop it. Hold it in place long enough for station security to arrive. With wire saws, wire is flexible. You can't cut free from something that wraps and tangles. Regeneration doesn't help if you're bound too tightly to move." He looked at the arsenal spread before them. "Master Dongmin, I need you to add something. Thin, strong cable, weighted on both ends. If I have to fight something that regenerates, I'll need to think like a hunter, not a warrior." Dongmin smiled. "Now you truly understand. The blade is just metal. The mind behind it, that is the real weapon." They worked through the afternoon modifying the arsenal. Dongmin added retractable cables to several blades. Bora helped Hyunwoo design the distribution system, figuring out where each weapon would be carried for optimal access and balance. By evening, the full load was ready. 47 blades together weighing nearly 30 kilograms. Most soldiers couldn't fight effectively carrying that much weight. But Hyunwoo had been training for this his whole career, even if he hadn't known it until now. He put on the full arsenal, feeling the familiar weight settle across his body. Knives in sheaths along his arms and legs, swords crossed on his back, throwing blades in quick-release holders, the specialized weapons in hidden pockets and clips. Bora circled him slowly. "You look like you're going to war, not a negotiation." "Diplomacy is war," Hyunwoo replied, "just with different weapons. Usually words. Sometimes when necessary, steel. The other delegations will lose their minds when you walk through security," she said. "Good. Let them be distracted by the spectacle. They won't see the real danger until it's too late." "And what's the real danger?" Hyunwoo smiled grimly. "A human who remembers what we were before we reached the stars. We weren't the species with the best technology. We were the species who survived because we could adapt, improvise, and turn anything into a weapon." Master Dongmin approached with one final blade, a simple fighting knife with a traditional Korean design. This one is special. My grandfather made it for your ancestor. Somehow it found its way here. I think it wants to go home. Hyunwoo took the blade carefully. It felt perfect in his hand, balanced and true. Thank you, Master. Come back alive, Captain. These blades have stories to tell and they need someone to carry them. As Hyunwoo and Bo-ra left the archive, the sun was setting over Seoul. In 48 hours, they would board a transport to Meridian's Crown Station. In 72 hours, they would walk through alien security checkpoints carrying an arsenal from Earth's violent past. The Vraks thought they were bringing politics to this confrontation. Hyunwoo was bringing something much older, much sharper, and much more human. They banned projectiles, so he brought 47 blades to diplomatic negotiations. Part 3 Meridian's Crown Station hung in space like a massive wheel, slowly rotating to create artificial gravity in its outer sections. Ships from a dozen species docked at the central hub, and through the observation windows Hyunwoo could see the diplomatic banners of the Galactic Council. This was neutral ground where wars were prevented and treaties were made, or where diplomatic delegations disappeared, he thought grimly. The human transport docked smoothly. Ambassador Ji-won wore traditional Korean formal dress modified for modern diplomacy. She looked calm, but Hyunwoo noticed her hands were steady in that particular way that meant she was controlling fear. Bo-ra stayed close to her left side. Hyunwoo took the right position, feeling the weight of 47 blades distributed across his body. Security screening was at the entrance to the main diplomatic section. A Saurian officer operated the scanners, his reptilian face expressionless as delegations passed through. Ahead of them, the Vraks diplomatic team was clearing security. They were insectoid creatures, their chitinous bodies clicking softly as they moved. Their security carried shock staves, traditional weapons that fit within the treaty rules. When the human delegation approached, the Saurian officer gestured to the scanner arch. Ambassador Ji-won went first, passing through cleanly. Bo-ra followed, her concealed knives triggering alerts but within acceptable limits. 6 blades, the scanner showed. Then Hyunwoo stepped forward. The scanner screamed with alerts. Red lights flashed across the display. The count kept climbing. 10 blades, 20, 30, 47. The Saurian officer's eyes widened. Please step aside and present all weapons for inspection. Hyunwoo had practiced this moment. Smoothly, methodically, he removed each blade and laid them on the inspection table, throwing knives in one section, fighting knives in another, short swords, medium swords, long ceremonial blades, the specialized weapons, the traditional Korean designs. A crowd was gathering. Delegates from other species stopped to watch. Hyunwoo heard their translations devices clicking, their voices rising in surprise and confusion. The Vrak senior delegate, Councillor Thix, pushed forward. His translated voice was harsh. This is unacceptable. Security protocol allows reasonable defensive armament, not a personal armory. Show me where the treaty defines reasonable, Hyunwoo said calmly, still laying out blades. The station's head of security arrived, an older Saurian named Arbiter Kale. He examined the display, then pulled up the treaty documentation on his datapad. His scaled finger traced the relevant passages. Ceremonial and traditional armaments of a non-projectile nature may be permitted at the discretion of station security, he read aloud. There is no quantity restriction specified. He looked at Hyunwoo with something that might have been amusement. These are all bladed weapons? Yes, Arbiter. No projectiles, no explosives, no energy weapons, just steel and skill. And you can actually use all of these? Would you like a demonstration, Arbiter? Kale considered for a moment, then gestured to an open space. Please, show us what human tradition looks like. Hyunwoo selected 6 blades of different sizes. In the station's 3/4 gravity, his movements were slightly easier than on Earth. He began slowly, showing the basic pattern. 2 knives moving in counter rhythm, then 4, then 6. The blades became a flowing pattern around him, each movement precise and controlled. The watching delegates grew quiet. This wasn't showmanship. This was combat skill that transcended species barriers. Everyone recognized a predator when they saw one move. Hyunwoo stopped, sheathing the 6 blades smoothly. Human beings have been perfecting blade combat for 10,000 years, Arbiter. These weapons are as much a part of our tradition as treaty making is part of yours. Arbiter Kale nodded slowly. The weapons are approved. All 47. He looked at Councillor Thix. The treaty is clear. If you wish to challenge this ruling, you may file a formal complaint with the council mediators. Thix's insectoid features couldn't show expression, but his translated voice was sharp with anger. This will be noted in our official protest. As the Vrax delegation stalked away, Bo-Ra whispered to Hyunwoo, "You just made us a lot of enemies." "We already had enemies," he replied quietly. "Now they know we're dangerous." The preliminary negotiation sessions began that afternoon. The council chamber was a circular room with seats arranged by species. The human delegation sat in a small section, facing the larger Vrax contingent across the chamber. Representatives from 15 other species filled the remaining seats, neutral observers and mediators. Ambassador Ji-Wan presented Earth's position clearly and calmly. The alleged kinetic weapon deployments were actually mining operations using standard excavation charges, all properly filed with council oversight committees. The Vrax evidence was circumstantial and based on long-range sensor data that could be interpreted multiple ways. The Vrax countered with their own evidence: sensor logs, testimony from border patrol ships, expert analysis of debris patterns. It was impressive, professional, and entirely fabricated, Hyunwoo suspected, but it was convincing to delegates who wanted to believe it. The first day ended inconclusively. As the delegations filed out, Hyunwoo watched everyone. He noted who made eye contact with the Vrax, who avoided the human delegation, who seemed nervous or aggressive. That evening, there was a mandatory diplomatic reception. Formal but tense, species mixing with careful politeness. Hyunwoo stood against a wall positioned where he could watch both Ambassador Ji-Wan and the room's entrances. His 47 blades were still distributed across his body. Other species security officers kept glancing at him, some with curiosity, others with barely concealed hostility. A massive krill warrior approached. The krill were bear-like, covered in thick fur and muscle. This one was clearly a security officer, and he moved with aggressive confidence. "Human," the krill said through his translator. "You make theater with your primitive blades. But against real warriors, what good is metal that does not fire?" "I hope we never have to find out," Hyunwoo replied evenly. "You hope?" The krill laughed, a deep rumbling sound. "Hope is not strategy. Your ambassador has no protection here, just 2 guards with ancient weapons." Bo-Ra tensed beside him, but Hyunwoo remained calm. "Ancient doesn't mean ineffective. Humans used blades long before we had guns. We were very good at it. Were. Past tense." The krill turned away dismissively, but Hyunwoo had noticed something during the exchange. A crystalline figure across the room pretending not to watch. Shen, the species that regenerated from cuts. It wore diplomatic aid credentials, but it moved wrong. Too aware of exits and sightlines. "Bo-Ra," he said quietly. "Crystalline species, 3rd pillar from the left. Watch that one," she spotted it immediately. "That's our problem. One of them. Keep your eyes open for others." The reception lasted 3 hours. By the end, Hyunwoo had identified 3 primary threats. The Shen aide, a Vrax security officer who kept positioning himself near the human delegation, and, surprisingly, a human translator working for the council secretariat. The translator avoided eye contact with Ji-Wan and seemed nervous whenever Hyunwoo looked his direction. Back in their quarters, they did a security sweep. The rooms were clean, no obvious surveillance beyond what was expected on a diplomatic station. But Hyunwoo checked the environmental controls anyway, running diagnostics on the life support systems. "You think they'll try something tonight?" Bo-Ra asked. "If they're smart, they'll probe first. Test our response times and procedures. A real attack would come later, when they know our patterns." He was right. At 2 in the morning, the atmospheric processor malfunctioned. Oxygen levels began dropping. Not fast enough to be immediately lethal, but fast enough to trigger alarms. Hyunwoo and Bo-Ra moved instantly. They evacuated Ambassador Ji-Wan to the corridor within 60 seconds, following emergency protocols. Station security arrived within 2 minutes, fixing the malfunction quickly. "Equipment failure," the security officer reported. "These old processors sometimes glitch. We apologize for the disturbance." But Hyunwoo examined the processor after they were cleared to return to quarters. There, nearly invisible without magnification, was a tiny scratch on one of the control interfaces. The scratch was too precise, too clean. It had been made by a crystalline edge. The Shen assassin had been in their quarters. It had sabotaged the environmental systems, probably to observe how they responded to emergencies. Testing them, Hyunwoo didn't sleep that night. He sat in the darkness, checking and rechecking his 47 blades, making sure each one was positioned correctly, ready to be drawn in an instant. Across the station, he knew the Vraks were planning their next move. They had tried to discredit Earth with false evidence. When that didn't work fast enough, they would try something more direct. The negotiations would continue tomorrow. More speeches, more evidence, more diplomatic words, but somewhere on this station, an assassin with a crystalline body and regenerating flesh was preparing for violence. Hyunwoo touched the fighting knife at his belt, the one Master Dongmin's grandfather had made for his ancestor. 300 years ago, a royal guard had carried 24 blades to protect his king. Tonight, his descendant carried 47 to protect his ambassador. They banned projectiles, so he brought 47 blades to diplomatic negotiations, Part 4. The summons came during the morning session of the third day. A council mediator approached Ambassador Ji-won with an urgent message. The senior arbiters wanted an emergency private meeting to discuss a possible resolution. The meeting would be held in a restricted conference room in the station's older section. Hyunwoo didn't like it. Everything about the situation was wrong. The timing right when Ji-won's presentation was gaining ground. The location, away from the main diplomatic areas. The urgency that prevented proper security preparation. It's a trap, he said flatly when they returned to their quarters to prepare. Probably, Ji-won agreed. But if I refuse, they'll claim Earth is obstructing the negotiation process. That plays into the Vraks' narrative that we're dangerous and uncooperative. Ma'am, they might try to kill you. I know, Captain. That's why I have you and Bora. She looked at him steadily. Can you protect me if they attack? Hyunwoo thought about the corridor routes he'd studied, the tight spaces, the limited sight lines. He thought about the Shen assassin and the Vrak security forces. Then he thought about 10,000 years of human beings surviving impossible situations with sharp objects and stubborn courage. Yes, ma'am, I can. The route to the restricted conference area was everything Hyunwoo feared. Narrow corridors in the old diplomatic section, where the station's original structure showed through. Multiple blind corners, access panels large enough to hide in, life support junctions that could be compromised. This was a kill box designed to trap and eliminate. Bora took point position, walking 15 meters ahead. Ambassador Ji-won stayed in the middle. Hyunwoo covered the rear, walking backward half the time to watch behind them. His hands rested near the throwing knives at his belt. They were halfway to the conference room when Bora's warning shout cut through the corridor. The Shen assassin dropped from a ventilation shaft above her. Its crystalline body caught the light as it fell, and it moved with inhuman speed. Bora threw 2 knives reflexively, but the blades sparked off the creature's body, barely leaving scratches that healed in seconds. Then the Vrak security forces appeared from side corridors ahead and behind, 8 of them carrying shock staves and ceremonial cutting blades. They moved to box the humans in, cutting off retreat. Ji-won, center of the corridor, stay low, Hyunwoo shouted. He drew 4 throwing knives with his right hand, 2 fighting knives with his left. The blade dance began. The first 3 throwing knives went at the Shen, not aimed at its body but at the joints in its crystalline limbs. The creature was fast, but Hyunwoo had trained for this. The weighted knives hit precisely, limiting the assassin's mobility even if they didn't truly wound it. The 4th throwing knife went past Bora, hitting the lead Vraks in the shoulder joint where his armor segments met. The insectoid warrior staggered, and Bora used the opening to drive forward with her own blades. Behind Hyunwoo, 4 Vraks were advancing. He pivoted, using the fighting knives to deflect the first shock stave strike while simultaneously throwing 2 more knives from his right hand. One Vrax took a blade in the leg joint. Another blocked with his stave, but the impact threw him off balance. The corridor was chaos. Hyunwoo had studied fighting in confined spaces his whole career, and now that knowledge became instinct. Use the walls. Use the ceiling. In the station's gravity, he could push off surfaces for momentum. Each blade's weight helped power the next strike. He drew a short sword with his right hand, keeping a fighting knife in his left. The sword's length gave him reach advantage in the narrow corridor. He used it defensively, keeping the Vraks at distance while his left hand struck with the knife when they tried to close. A shock stave got through his defense, hitting his shoulder. Pain exploded through his arm, but Hyunwoo had trained through pain. He dropped the short sword deliberately, drawing 2 fresh fighting knives as he fell back a step. The Vrax pressed forward, thinking him wounded and weakening. Mistake. Hyunwoo came back up with both knives leading faster than the insectoid expected. One blade caught the Vrax's weapon arm. The other found the gap between chest armor plates. Not a killing blow, but enough to make the warrior drop his stave. Ahead, Bo-Ra was holding her own against 3 Vrax, but the Shen assassin was circling toward Ambassador Ji-Wan. The crystalline creature had regenerated from every wound Bo-Ra had inflicted. It moved with terrible patience, knowing it just had to reach the ambassador once. Hyunwoo threw his last 3 ready throwing knives at the Shen. Again he aimed for joints, for the mechanical parts of its movement, rather than trying to wound its regenerating flesh. The creature stumbled, buying seconds, but he was running out of blades in easy reach. He'd used 16 of his 47. His shoulder was numb from the shock stave hit. And there were still 5 Vrax standing, plus the nearly invulnerable Shen. Time for the real dance. Hyunwoo drew 2 medium swords from his back. The weight was significant, but that was the point. He began moving in the patterns Master Dongmin had shown him, using the sword's momentum as part of the technique. Swing right while stepping left. Let the weight carry the blade in an arc while you draw a knife with your other hand. The Vrax had been trained to fight opponents who blocked and struck in predictable patterns. They weren't ready for someone who fought like he was conducting an orchestra of sharp edges. Hyunwoo's blade seemed to be everywhere at once, striking from impossible angles because he used each sword's momentum to power the next strike. One Vrax went down with a sword cut across his weapon arm. Another fell back when Hyunwoo's knife found a gap in his armor. The remaining 3 tried to coordinate, but the narrow corridor worked against them. They got in each other's way while Hyunwoo flowed between them like water. Behind him, Bo-Ra shouted. The Shen had gotten past her, rushing at Ambassador Ji-Wan. The crystalline assassin raised an arm that ended in a blade-sharp point, preparing to strike. Ji-Wan surprised everyone. Instead of freezing, she dropped flat and rolled sideways. The Shen's strike hit empty air. Hyunwoo turned desperate. The Shen was between him and his ambassador. He couldn't reach it in time. His throwing knives hadn't stopped it. His swords couldn't kill something that regenerated. Then he remembered. The wire saws. He dropped the medium swords and drew 2 of his specialized weapons. The wire saws looked like simple batons, but hidden inside each was 50 meters of diamond wire cable, thin and incredibly strong. The Shen turned toward Ji-Wan again. Hyunwoo threw both batons not at the creature but past it. The batons hit the walls on either side of the corridor and rebounded, their cables trailing behind them. The wires crossed the space where the Shen stood. The crystalline assassin tried to step forward and found its legs caught. It tried to regenerate through the wires, but they were too thin, too tight. Every movement wrapped it tighter. Bo-Ra saw what Hyunwoo was doing. She grabbed another cable weapon from her belt and threw it. More wire, more tangling. The Shen thrashed, its regeneration useless against bonds that grew tighter with each movement. The last 2 Vrax warriors, seeing their assassin trapped and 3 of their team down, hesitated. That hesitation was fatal. Hyunwoo drew fresh fighting knives and closed with them. Without the shock of his initial assault, without surprise on their side, they were just 2 soldiers against a human who'd been training for this fight his entire life. 30 seconds later, both Vrax were down, disarmed and injured but alive. Station security arrived to find a strange scene. 8 Vrax warriors were scattered along the corridor, unconscious or groaning in pain. A Shen assassin was cocooned in diamond wire cable, unable to move despite its regeneration, and 3 humans stood over them. Hyunwoo was bleeding from a dozen small cuts, his uniform torn. He breathed hard, sweat running down his face. 16 of his 47 blades were scattered along the corridor, but Ambassador Ji-Wan was unharmed, protected by 2 guards who'd been willing to face impossible odds with ancient weapons. Arbiter Kale pushed through the security team, his scaled face showing shock. What happened here? An assassination attempt, Ambassador Ji-Wan said calmly, though her voice shook slightly. The Vrax attacked my delegation on the way to what was supposed to be a private mediation session. Kale looked at the Shen in its wire cocoon. And that creature? Shen assassin, Hyunwoo said.
Hired by the Vrax to kill the ambassador.
You'll find evidence in its equipment if you search carefully. These are serious accusations, Kyle said, but he was already signaling his security team to secure the scene. Counselor Thix arrived, flanked by more Vrax guards. This is an outrage. Our security forces were responding to reports of suspicious activity. The humans attacked them. Your security forces attacked first, Bora said flatly. We have testimony and evidence. The testimony of 2 guards. Against 8 Vrax witnesses. Hyunwoo picked up one of his throwing knives, wiping it clean. 31 witnesses, actually. I recovered 31 of my 47 blades from the corridor. Each one tells a story of where it struck, how it was used. Your warriors attacked us from ambush. The physical evidence will prove it. Arbiter Kale's expression hardened. All involved parties will submit to interrogation. The Shen assassin will be questioned under council protocols. They banned projectiles, so he brought 47 blades to diplomatic negotiations. Part 5. The interrogation rooms on Meridian's crown were designed to prevent lies. Neutral lighting, sensors monitoring biological stress responses, and most importantly, drugs that made deception physiologically difficult for most species. The Shen assassin, trapped in its diamond wire cocoon, couldn't avoid the truth serum that Council security administered. Hyunwoo watched the interrogation through a one-way screen, his shoulder bandaged where the shock stave had hit. Beside him, Arbiter Kale watched with increasing anger as the truth emerged. The Shen spoke in clicks and chimes, translated by the station's systems. Contract received from Vrax Collective. Target human ambassador Jiwon. Secondary targets, security personnel if interfering. Payment. 3 systems worth of rare minerals. Mission parameters. Death must appear accidental or attributable to human security failure. Why target the ambassador specifically? The interrogator asked. Vrax planning military action against human colony worlds needed to eliminate diplomatic opposition first. Human ambassador too effective in council debates. Had to be removed before presenting defense evidence. Kale's claws clicked against the datapad he held. The weapons violations accusations? Fabricated. All sensor data falsified by Vrax intelligence services. Real goal was to justify military sanctions against Earth, then military action. Ambassador's death would prevent humans from defending themselves politically. The interrogation continued, each answer worse than the last. The 3 missing human diplomats hadn't disappeared accidentally. They'd been kidnapped by Vrax agents and used as test subjects for bioweapons. The Vrax had been developing diseases specifically designed to affect human biochemistry, planning to deploy them against Earth's colony worlds. When the interrogation ended, Kale turned to Hyunwoo. Your species showed remarkable restraint, Captain. You could have killed all 8 Vrax warriors. None of their wounds were fatal. We're not here to kill, Arbiter. We're here to prove Earth follows Council laws and deserves our place among civilized species. Hyunwoo paused, though I'll admit there were moments when restraint was difficult. I imagine so. Kyle pulled up security footage from the corridor fight. I've watched this 17 times. Your fighting technique, it's extraordinary. Where did you learn to use so many blades together? From 10,000 years of human history. Every culture on Earth developed blade combat traditions. I studied them all and combined them into something new. Hyunwoo gestured at the screen. The aliens think technology makes humans dangerous. But we were dangerous long before we had spaceships. We were dangerous when all we had was sharp rocks and determination. The full Galactic Council convened 3 days later. Representatives from 47 species filled the Grand Chamber, including several senior members who rarely appeared for standard negotiations. This was no longer about treaty violations. This was about attempted genocide. The evidence was presented systematically. The Shen's confession, communication intercepts between Vrax agents, the bioweapons research data recovered from Vrax intelligence servers, testimony from the surviving Vrax warriors, who admitted under truth serum that they'd been ordered to kill the human delegation. Councillor Thix tried to argue. The actions of a few individuals do not represent the Vrax collective. But Arbiter Kale presented evidence that the orders had come from the Vrax High Command. This was official policy, not rogue agents. Still, some council members remained uncomfortable, not with the Vrax crimes, which were undeniable, but with the human response. A Krill representative spoke up, the same warrior who'd mocked Hyunwoo at the reception. The Vrax conspiracy is proven. They must face justice. But we must also discuss the humans. They found a dangerous loophole in our weapons treaties. 1 human with primitive blades defeated 8 trained warriors and a Shen assassin. This shows humans are too dangerous, too unpredictable. Perhaps they should not be trusted with council membership. The chamber filled with murmurs. Some agreed. Others argued. The debate threatened to spiral away from the Vrax crimes and toward human nature. Ambassador Jiwan rose to speak. The chamber quieted. Honored council members, she began. You invited humanity to join this assembly 80 years ago. You gave us your laws, your treaties, your rules for civilization. We studied them. We followed them. We followed them precisely. She activated a holographic display showing the weapons treaty language. Your laws banned projectiles to reduce violence. We agreed. Your laws banned explosives. We agreed. Energy weapons, chemical weapons, biological weapons. We agreed to all restrictions. But you did not ban blades. And when we arrived for these negotiations, when my life was in danger, my security officer protected me using weapons that were completely legal under your treaties. If that disturbs you, I must ask, is the problem that we followed your rules or that we followed them too well? The Krill representative stood. You exploited a loophole. We read the law carefully, Jiwan countered. Is that not what civilized species do? Or should we have ignored legal weapons in favor of illegal ones, just because it would be more comfortable for you? She paused, letting the question hang. Humanity has fought terrible wars. We know violence intimately, but we also know restraint. Captain Hyunwoo carried 47 blades into a situation where he faced 8 warriors and an assassin designed to be nearly invulnerable. He could have killed them all. Blades are very good at killing. Humans have had 10,000 years to perfect that skill. But look at the evidence. Not one Vrax warrior died. The Shen assassin was captured unharmed. My security team used exactly the level of force necessary to protect me and stop the attack. No more. That is not the behavior of a dangerous, uncontrolled species. That is the behavior of a species that understands the difference between capacity for violence and tendency toward it. An older delegate from the Saurian contingent spoke up. The ambassador makes a compelling point. The humans were attacked by superior numbers, including a regenerating assassin. Yet they exercised remarkable restraint. Perhaps that restraint is more important than the number of weapons they carried. Another delegate, this one from the peaceful Luminari species, added their voice. The Vrax planned genocide against the humans. They developed bioweapons. They falsified evidence. They hired assassins. And the human response was to defend themselves legally and protect their representative without unnecessary killing. Which species truly threatens the Council's peace? The debate shifted. More delegates spoke in favor of the human approach. Some admitted they had been quietly threatened by the Vrax for years, too afraid to speak up. Earth's successful defense against the conspiracy gave them courage to share their own experiences. By the end of the session, the verdict was clear. The Vrax Collective faced severe sanctions. Their council seat was suspended for a minimum of 10 years. Their military was placed under council monitoring. The bioweapons program was dismantled under direct council supervision. Councillor Thix and 17 other Vrax officials were arrested on charges of conspiracy to commit genocide. But the council went further. Arbiter Kale proposed a new treaty article. Species shall be judged not solely by their capacity for violence, but by their demonstrated restraint in employing it. The ability to choose peace while possessing the means for war is the true measure of civilization. The proposal passed with overwhelming support. It would become known as the Human Restraint Doctrine. 6 weeks later, Hyunwoo stood in the Seoul Historical Weapons Archive, carefully placing his 47 blades back in their display cases. Master Dongmin watched, nodding approval as each weapon found its home. Your ancestor would be proud, Dongmin said. He carried 24 blades to protect his king. You carried 47 and protected not just your ambassador, but humanity's place in the galaxy. I just followed the law, Hyunwoo replied, and I remembered that humans have always been good at 2 things: adapting to new situations and being surprisingly dangerous when necessary. Surprisingly dangerous, but wisely restrained. That's the key. Dongmin handed him one fighting knife. Keep this one. You've earned it. It was the ancestral blade, the one made by Dongmin's grandfather for Hyunwoo's ancestor. Hyunwoo accepted it carefully. I'll carry it with honor. I know you will. At Earth's Unified Defense Corps headquarters, General Tae-yang was reviewing recommendations. Hyunwoo's after-action report sat on his desk, and the final paragraph made him smile. Recommend expanding blade combat training for all diplomatic security personnel. Also recommend we introduce the Council to the human concept of martial arts diplomacy. If they think 47 blades was concerning, wait until they learn about our philosophical traditions regarding when not to draw them. The greatest warrior is one who never has to fight, but who is absolutely ready when necessary. Taeyang approved the recommendation. Within a year, blade combat training became standard for all human diplomatic and security personnel. But more importantly, the training included extensive instruction on restraint, de-escalation, and the philosophy of violence as a last resort. The Galactic Council noticed. They noticed that humans who could be terrifyingly dangerous chose peace whenever possible.